Hinkle isn't such a bad fellow after all.
Most amusing.
Here you are, get a Hinkle button, get a Hinkle button. A fine photo with a fooey on each and every button.
Mein Freunden,
Here you are,
Verleiten mit der Geld der Bekossen. Was der Tuden? Der Tuden! Straf! Mit der Strafen lächeln das Guten der Tuden. Schutz, meine Straf. Der Dick, was sagt? Und der Fratzensack. Und der Fratzensack. Und der Viertensack. Mit Strangel lächeln mit einer der Blut. Der Blut mit seiner Tochter der Tuden hat. Und der Ghetto mit einer Blitzkriegheitsstraff, der Straff der Tunden sagt der Hals, wie der Tunden sagt, hey, der Hals, die Alien mit Elten sagt, Straff, Hals, mit einem Platz, das anders bieten wird.
Come on, let's hurry.
After more than a year in production, The Great Dictator opened in New York on October 15th, 1940. Crowds thronged to the theaters on the night of the premiere. Chaplin's first talking picture was an immediate and tremendous hit. The Great Dictator is my first picture in which history is greater than the little tramp, Chaplin would say. 2 months later, the film opened in London to equal success. Occupied by Nazi Germany, France would have to wait until 1945 to see the film. The night of the New York premiere, Chaplin at last introduced Paulette Goddard as his wife. It all began with a love story. It was during a long trip to Asia 4 years earlier that Chaplin secretly married Paulette Goddard, his co-star in Modern Times. The young woman was then 25 and was accompanied by her mother. Paulette Goddard, whose real name was Marion Levy, was Chaplin's third wife. Chaplin was already thinking about his next film, in which he again wanted to cast Paulette Goddard. But again I was faced with the same depressing question, said Chaplin. Should I make another silent picture? I had thought of possible voices for the tramp, whether he should speak in monosyllables or just mumble. But it was no use. If I talked, I would become like any other comedian. Chaplin spent the entire summer of 1938 at Pebble Beach, a residential area for millionaires near Carmel, 100-odd miles south of San Francisco. There, he struck up a friendship with Tim Durant, a wealthy young man, and Dan James, an aspiring writer and ardent Marxist who suggested that he work with Chaplin on a script. In search of a story, Chaplin remembered an idea his friend Alexander Korda, the British producer and filmmaker, had suggested to him in which he would play two roles, Hitler and the tramp. This would allow Chaplin to hang on to his silent character and at the same time settle some scores with his rival, the man who had stolen his mustache. The thief in question, Hitler. In 1939, Hitler was 50 years old, the same age as Chaplin.
What's incredible is that he wrote the script in 1937 to 38. Well, at that moment, Hitler wasn't only the great hero for Germany because he had saved Germany from communism, since the German Communist Party was the largest in Europe, it had 20 million members, but also because he had totally revived the economy. He gave everybody work. And there were problems virtually everywhere in the world, especially in America after 1929. It was thought that it would take a man like Hitler everywhere to save the world, to save the economy, to save the world from communism. So he was the great hero. And at that moment, Charlie Chaplin decided he would go with this film after all, which means that he had seen right. He was a visionary. He saw what was going to happen later.
For me, the funniest thing in the world, said Chaplin, is to ridicule imposters and conceited people in high places. The greater the imposter you take on, the better your chances of making a funny picture, and it would be harder to find a bigger imposter than Hitler. He was the best target in the world for satire and mockery.